Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We have so much to get to this morning. I do want to say happy Veterans Day. I don't believe I think I said it yesterday, but I didn't talk a whole lot about Veterans Day. Big thank you to those who served this beautiful country of ours. Freedom isn't free. I did want to talk with you a little bit about three men. Now, they weren't veterans, but they were influential in the founding of our country. John, Frank, and Richard. Now, they were all kind of wealthy. John, he was a farmer, like many farmers. He provided food for America. And a lot of people don't know where their food comes from, right? And a lot of Americans have no idea. And John, he was a farmer. And he was very wealthy. He was downright rich because he was really good at his job, feeding America. Frank, he was an international businessman. He had a little something to do with the mercantile exchange, and he was born in Wales, and he was educated in the best schools. So John and Frank, after becoming a legal citizen of his country, he made a fortune, and he employed more people than he could keep track of. He made a ton of money as an international businessman. Richard, he was a wealthy lawyer. He studied law at Princeton, and his ancestors actually helped build Princeton. That's Richard. And he sat on the New Jersey Supreme Court, where he earned politicians' respect on both sides of the aisle. So Richard, Frank, and John sat down with dozens of other wealthy men, and they were in this private men's club. And that later became known as the Second Continental Congress, and they signed their names on a manifesto declaring their independence alongside bigger names like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin. Okay, so wealthy men at this men's club, they discussed the state of our country, the current tax code, and they believed the taxes were just too high, and they were deeply offended by the sentiment that they had to pay their fair share. And they believed the administration was corrupt and that they were pocketing their money. John, Frank, and Richard believed this alongside Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin. John, Frank, and Richard all listened while the men talked, and they needed to elect a leader that would stop dividing the country. So they sent their manifesto off to all of the media outlets and the country, and it didn't take long for the powers to be, back then, back in 1776, it didn't take long for the powers then to be very, very angry. Actually, they became livid. And, you know how they complain about, paying your fair share, that you'd be nothing without the government, right? It's for the good of the country. We tax you into oblivion for the good of the country. The government, they decided to teach those three men a lesson. Frank arrived to his mansion in New York. And then he came to his mansion in New York, and then they confiscated everything, including his wife, his belongings. They locked his wife up with no food, and they didn't even give her a change of clothes, right? And shortly thereafter, she died. It was really sad. So John, he saw troops occupying his farm in Hopewell. John went into hiding because there were calls for his executions. He had 12 kids on his farm. He was recently widowed, but he went into hiding, and eventually the stress of hiding killed him. Richard was a bigger target because he was the judge, remember? And because of his status, they brought in armed men. They drug him out of his bed, locked him up, and they starved him to death. And he starved him, but he survived through that. And then eventually he died. He spent his final days dependent on his family and friends, and everything. His whole entire fortune was stolen from him. So John Hart, Francis Lewis, and Richard Stockton, those are their names. They've been overshadowed, obviously, by the big names, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. But, these guys, they started this country, and they pledged their lives. They lost everything for this country. And when you sign your name on that line and you say, I'm willing to serve this country, you're doing the same thing that John Hart, Francis Lewis, and Richard Stockton did at the start. You know, most revolutions, they start with pitchforks and angry mobs. Not here. They were just wealthy once percenters of 1776, and they had everything to lose, and they put everything on the line, including their lives, for a country that didn't even exist yet. So then when we talk about veterans, you know, these guys, they didn't serve in the military, I guess, per se, but they put everything on the line. And that's what our veterans do every single day, whether they had made that sacrifice, they made that sacrifice, and they sacrificed their time with their families. And much like John Hart, Francis Lewis, and Richard Stockton, they do it for a country. And, you know, this all started in 1776 at a men's club, which I think is pretty remarkable. And those guys could have easily paid that extra tax. They could have easily done it. Just like men who sign up for to serve this country, they could have easily not done that and had, you know, this amazing life where they just, you know, spend their extra free time golfing or, you know, pursuing a passion of theirs. But instead, they decide to go serve our country. They could live in peace, but they chose their liberty and our liberty, future generations' liberty, over their own safety. And that's what veterans do. They choose liberty, they choose freedom, and it's not even their own freedom. It's not even their own liberty. It's our freedom that they choose. So there's a huge sacrifice that every single one of our men and women in service, currently in service, and our veterans who have served. So big thank you. Big thank you. So I do want to get to some news today. I saw here, I do want to talk about this story, the Mexican president. She's a far left president in Mexico, okay? And she, before Trump was officially declared the winner, now I think all the votes have been counted. Officially, we have the House, Senate, and the presidency, which is awesome. But we have this Mexico far left president, and prior to Donald Trump actually getting until all the votes were counted, which I don't know, they might not all be counted, but they've officially declared the House. I mean, Arizona is like so slow at counting these votes. I don't know what's going on there, but prior to all the votes being officially counted and Donald Trump, you know, getting out there and declaring victory, and then Kamala Harris getting out there and conceding the election, despite all that, and despite it mathematically being impossible for Donald Trump to lose, this Mexican president, her name is Claudia Sheinbaum. She was elected in the deadliest election in Mexican history. I'm going to get to that here in just a second, but she would not acknowledge Trump as president of the United States. She hasn't come out and officially acknowledged him as the president of the United States. She said she wasn't going to until all the votes are counted. So here we are, fast forward a couple of days, a week almost. We're almost a week out from the election. Or we are a week out from the election. I wonder what she has to say now that all the votes are counted. But so, like I said, Kamala conceded the election and he literally won, but she refused to say it. And she's a far left president of Mexico. So according to the Daily Mail, there's news that President Donald Trump won, but we're going to wait, she says. Anyway, until today, when some states finish counting, and we can give the official announcement. So I don't think they've given an official announcement declaring that they are recognizing that Trump is the president. But just a few days ago, this woman got out there and she wouldn't even say that Donald Trump was the president. Trump's win obviously stokes fear in Mexico. It's going to send their local currency tumbling probably. At one point, the peso was trading at $20.80 per dollar. And that was a level not seen since August of 2022. The peso peaked at 20.26 on last week on Tuesday. So, yeah, Mexico, they This is what she says. Mexico always moves forward. We are free, independent, sovereign country, and we have a good relationship with the United States. I'm convinced of that. The fact that she was elected, and I'm using air quotes here, elected in the deadliest election in Mexico, in Mexican history, it kind of makes me doubt that Mexico is actually a free country, but that's neither here nor there. Even when all the votes are counted, and I think that they pretty much are, and Trump was the winner a week ago, and he's the winner now. She's just a total clown. She's a total puppet. And I don't know too much about Mexican politics, but I have a hunch that she might have been the cartel's candidate here. And if so, this is unsurprising, okay, because they're not going to be trafficking their drugs in anymore, the cartel, and she's not going to be making her monies. Okay, so this is unsurprising that she's in denial. And it's probably because she's going to be looking at a cut in profit, when it's all said and done, because Donald Trump is going to stop the drug trafficking. He's going to stop the pouring over of illegals into our country. So the cartel, they are making billions off of our current administration right now. Open border policies and, the fentanyl that's coming in. So it makes sense that this woman is in denial and she doesn't want to officially declare Trump the president, although he's been president-elect for a week. Unfortunately, the people of Mexico, they have to deal with this woman. They have to deal with this Mexican president, and I feel so bad for them. Fortunately for Americans, Trump is going to be our president. He's the president-elect. He was a week then when she denied it, and he is now that all the votes are counted. So she can live in her progressive la-la land all she wants, but it's not going to change anything, okay? Trump is going to be president. He's going to be the president of the United States. He is the president-elect. So the bloodiest, election the deadliest Mexican election in history. This was, her election. It was one of the most violent election campaigns in Mexico's history because people were assassinating their candidates before or assassinating people who were voting for this woman, or who weren't voting for this woman and were voting for the other candidate. There was all kinds of 749 victims or something like that, where if you expressed, a distaste for or you didn't like this president back during this election, you would have been on the job. You would have died. Could have died. You could have been killed or hurt. And a lot of people were. So this position that she got, and that was up for grabs, I think it was like the 2018, 2019, somewhere around there is when this far leftist president got elected. When this position was up for grabs, there was a lot of bloodshed because her side, or radicals on her side, decided to kill people before they could get to the polls and vote for the other guy. So I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. I do want to get to quite a few things this morning. Pritzker touting the record graduation rate here in the state of Illinois after the Illinois report card comes out, and others are criticizing. Let's look at the test scores, okay? You can graduate all the kids you want, but let's look at the test scores. Are they actually doing better? I also want to talk about this lunatic psychiatrist. She tells you it's okay to shun your Trump voting family members. Wow. All right, I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. I do want to make sure I pull up, I think it was like 749 victims reported that found, a report that found 34 candidates have been murdered. Wow, this is incredible. So Mexico's 2024 election is by far the most violent since 2018, with 749 people connected to the races. or falling victim to violent crime. I mean, this was a rough election. Really tragic. All right, I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I got to take a quick break. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News in Talka, Bloomington Normal. I want to make sure I clarify something. It was the 2024 election. So this was a Mexico election. It was very, very bloody. I thought it might have been 2018. It's the bloodiest since 2018. You know, and this woman, this Mexican president, she's a far leftist. She says that, oh, Mexico always moves forward. We're free, independent, and we're a sovereign country. And we have a great relationship with the United States. And I'm convinced of that. And she, refuses to recognize President Donald Trump as the actual president. It's probably because she's the cartel's candidate. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. And I'm just going to say, I think that I don't keep up with Mexican politics, but I have a hunch that she might be the cartel's candidate. And it's not surprising that she is denying President Donald Trump, considering the cut in profit they're going to make or that they'll see here once he closes up that border. So the cartels, they're making billions off of this administration, of the open border policies, the fentanyl pouring in. And unfortunately, the people of Mexico have to deal with this guy or this gal. It's a female president, far leftist. So I want to clear something up. It was the 2024 election. So there were several immigrant families on the border who told CNN, and this is reported back in 2024, June, that they were fleeing from Mexico because there is a bloody national election going on and several dozens of political candidates have been assassinated and hundreds have been threatened on the campaign trail. So CNN actually shares this story back in 2024. She was a shop owner. She was a local coordinator for a political party on the outskirts of Mexico City. Her name was Norma. And turns out, she calls the police. She files a complaint for a noise complaint coming from the building next door to her house, which was being used by the rival political party. And she doesn't know what resulted from the police investigation, but the 35-year-old woman, Norma, began receiving intimidating threats. So she was a coordinator for the opposite political party of this Mexican president that we have now. And so strange men began to approach her in the street. They said that she didn't have long to live. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think she's wrong when she says that Mexico is a free country. Considering you won the bloodiest election of all time in Mexico, I'm going to take everything you say with a grain of salt there, lady. But yeah, she refuses to acknowledge President Donald Trump as the president. She goes, I have to wait until all the votes are counted, every single one, until I will officially announce President Donald Trump as the president. So insane. Insane. So I do want to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker. He's touting the record graduation rates that we have here in the state of Illinois. Others are criticizing the test scores. They're actually pretty low. When you look at the numbers here, the Illinois report card, you're going to have people, touting this as like a big win. But you have to keep some things in perspective. The state legislature, they constantly have weakened the standards of which we deem a student proficient. The Illinois School Board of Education has come out in several press releases calling for the weakening of the standards, saying that Illinois has the highest standards, some of the highest standards in the nations for children to be deemed proficient in math and reading. So you have to keep it in context here. We lowered our standards. That's why the students are doing better. Recently, the Illinois report card shows some growth in some areas, multiple areas. You've got English, they're seeing some growth, maths and science, they're all increasing year over year. But like I said, you have to keep in mind, we lowered the proficiency standards. Also, this is only K through 8 where we're seeing the growth. We're not seeing the growth with teens, like high school age children. So State Representative Brad Holbrook said students' proficiency rates should be improving because the taxpayers have poured an additional $350 million each year over the past 5 years into education funding. That's insane at a state level. That's not even counting. We're spending $10 billion just from the state of Illinois on education. Plus, there's local contributions as well. A big chunk of your property tax bill goes to your local school districts. There's federal dollars as well that goes to the schools. So they've got the money, folks. And of course, if you've got all this money, you would think that the kids' scores would be improving. Unfortunately, they're not improving by much with this Illinois report card, if at all, because you have to keep in mind, like I said, they changed the proficiency standards. So is there really a true way to know if these kids are proficient in math and reading? No. Short answer, no, because we don't know. Because they changed the standards, right? And also, it's not as big of a win as they're saying it is. They're saying, oh, this Illinois report card, it's such a win. It's not, because you look at it, it's only K through 8th graders who are seeing these improvements. Ted Dabrowski, Wire Points, he pointed out that the SAT scores are actually down and the high school graduation rates are up, which makes no sense, right? We're not seeing improvements at all on the SAT. And there was, the whatever improvements there were, it was an Illinois test, right? And that's very different from high school age students who take the SAT, which is a national test. Okay, so Governor J.B. Pritzker on social media, he touted this year's Illinois report card, saying we've reached the highest graduation rate in 14 years at 87.7%. Sure, we might be bouncing back stronger than ever when it comes to the graduation rates, but the graduation rates they're whatever you want it to be. You can graduate a kid who doesn't know how to read and write. I've seen it when I went to Illinois State. They passed this girl all the way up to sophomore year. She was a journalism student. I'm not kidding you, could not read and write. I had to let her go from an internship because I couldn't take the time. I offered, hey, I could tutor you outside of class, regular class time, but I highly recommend you go get a tutor to teach you how to read and write. She got all the way to sophomore year in college. So it happens, folks. Where you just say, yep, you can graduate high school. We're going to pass you through and we're not going to hold you back any. We're going to graduate you. We're going to let you go through graduation, but you don't even know how to read. Okay. The proficiency rates are still low for high school students. Now, there was slight improvements, but like I said, those improvements could just be because they lowered those standards. The graduation rates are whatever they want them to be. That's what Ted Dabrowski says. He says they can set the standards and just let the kids graduate. It's really egregious about this. What's really egregious about this is that they're bragging about a graduation rate being at 88%, but then you look at the results of the high schoolers and you look at their SAT scores and they're bad. The SAT scores are terrible. Graduation rates for Black and Latino students are low compared to the white and Asian American students. Okay, so Black students have an 80% graduation rate in comparison to the 88% rate of the white students. There is just a lot to be concerned with here when you've got people on every level. Governor J.B. Pritzker, your Unit 5, your District 87 school administration, when they start touting these numbers as if they are the best numbers they've ever seen, don't believe them. They are purposefully trying to, they're providing you misinformation. You can't make educated decisions on where to send your child to school if you are constantly fed misinformation or information without context. All right, I do want to talk about Donald Trump's victory. It's been 7 days since he won on Election Day. He won massively. He improved among every demographic, except, of course, we know the white college students, right? He didn't do well with that demographic, but that's okay. I'm cool with not getting that demographic. But the demographics across the board, he's improved. Maybe some bitter women who don't watch MSNBC didn't vote for him, but lefties, some are reacting to the news a little bit better than others. Now, there was this one woman, she's a Yale psychiatrist. She's not reacting to the news very well. Kamala Harris, I bet she's reacting to this news better than this Yale psychiatrist. I bet Harris is already, 4 bottles of wine deep, and she's hanging out with Doug's kids, with a glass of wine on the couch. And Joe Biden, he's definitely back on the beach in Delaware. He's fine. Everybody's fine except the psychiatrist. This Yale psychiatrist is losing her marbles. She can't calm down. So she is actually out there with Joyless Reed, encouraging people to not talk to their family members and to shun their family members if they have a different opinion than them. So I'm going to be right back with more. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and talk of Bloomington Normal. Good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Gee, MSM. So I'm thinking you're saying mainstream media didn't report on that I've heard. The Mexican president, I'd imagine you're talking about the Mexican president and how she said she wasn't going to recognize Donald Trump as president. Who knows? Maybe she's made the official announcement. I got to look up. From what I've seen, I haven't seen her officially declare or congratulate Donald Trump on becoming president-elect. When it looked mathematically impossible for Kamala Harris to win, and he declared victory, and Kamala Harris conceded the election, she still wouldn't acknowledge Donald Trump as the president-elect. She came out and she goes, "I'll wait until all the votes are counted." So she was in a bit of denial there. Naturally, right? If she's the cartel's candidate, she's the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum. She was elected during the most deadliest election in Mexican history. Now, the mainstream media, they haven't talked about this because she is a far left president, and they love this president because guess what? The cartel, I don't know to say for certainty, but if I had to guess, the cartel is going to lose billions of dollars because they're making billions of dollars under this current administration with the open border policies, right? It only makes sense. They make all kinds of deals. I would not be shocked if there's a deal with the FBI where they seize the money from these drug cartels and they have a deal made up to where they get a cut. The federal government gets a cut of the Mexican drug cartels pouring in drugs, and then they get a cut of the profits, right? I would not be shocked because here's why I say that. Why have open borders if you aren't condoning it in some way? Obviously, they're condoning it because there's open border policies. They wouldn't have the open border policies if they were against the drug cartels, okay? If they were against it, they could easily close up that border, but they don't. Why? Because not only do I think they condone it, but I think they're profiting from it. The federal government, this current administration, there's billions of dollars here, and they can cover it up to where, we're seizing the cash from the drug cartels, we're making seizures, but it's all it's all they have a deal going on. Everybody's making money. The bad guys and the so-called good guys are federal government, right? But yeah, unfortunately for the people of Mexico, she's their president. And like I said, the bloodiest election, and CNN did report on this at the time. That's where I like to pull from leftist sites, left-leaning media, because, people are going to say, "Oh, where'd you get that information?" Actually, I got it from CNN. So here I'm quoting it from a 2024 June article. Several migrant families on the border told CNN they were fleeing the fallout of Mexico's bloody national elections, which dozens of political candidates, so down ballot candidates, not the national candidates, they were all not assassinated, but the, down ballot candidates, some of them were assassinated, hundreds threatened on the campaign trail. There was 749 victims. I think I got that number. from somewhere. It was hundreds of people. Hundreds of people faced threats during the election campaign. There was an environment of fear. So, yeah, she's a far left loony. And here it is. A May 28th report by a research group identified 749 victims of political violence in Mexico, including 231 killings. Hundreds of candidates reported being threatened, and many dropped out of their races, fearing their lives. Okay, this is one of the bloodiest elections of all time. And you've got this woman coming out and denying that Donald Trump is the president. I wouldn't say that that is a win. If you win an election where 749 people were victim to political violence, I don't think that you can say that you are the president of a free, sovereign country or of a good country. That's definitely not something to be proud of. Sounds like she didn't win her election fairly, and she's out there denying the election of President Donald Trump, or not willing to declare him as president-elect. You got to be kidding me with all this. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. Yeah, I wanted to provide you that story about the Mexican president. And a lot of people seem to have not heard that she was not willing to declare President Donald Trump as president-elect. This Mexican president, her name is Claudia Sheinbaum. I don't really keep up with Mexican politics. I am willing to bet, or I have a hunch, that she is the cartel's candidate. Okay, they are going to be losing billions of dollars because right now, under the current administration, they're just free to open border policies. They're free to ship their drugs into this country. The cartels, and they're making billions and billions of dollars off of the current administration's either lack of wanting to close the border for whatever reason, or that they're just openly condoning the cartel. Okay, I don't know which it is. If maybe the administration's benefiting from it, maybe they're getting a cut. I don't know. Yeah, I've heard crazier things, right? But you've got this cartel. They're making billions right now, and they're going to lose all that money. Of course, this woman is going to deny that Donald Trump is president, because if she's getting a cut from the cartel, she's going to lose billions. She's going to lose a lot of money if she is, in fact, the cartel's candidate. It's possible because she won the deadliest election in history. I thought it was a while ago, but it's been the deadliest election in Mexican history. It was in 2024. You had people lining up at the border, and a lot of this, these recent border crossings is probably due to this election. Now, in June of 2024, you have CNN reporting that there were 749 victims of political violence in Mexico during this election, the 2024 election. And that includes the 231 killings. So 231 people died killing. Hundreds of candidates had reported during this election cycle being threatened, and many of them dropped out of their races, fearing their lives. Intimidation was particularly persuasive in local level elections, where races could hand the winners broad control over small communities. So this is this is the deadliest, and she won it. She won it. So I don't know if that's something to be proud of there, Claudia. But she won't recognize Donald Trump as the president. I think that's hilarious. I do want to talk about this lunatic Yale professor. That's what I was talking about before I took the break. She was a guest on racist Joy Reid's show. She's saying that, and she's encouraging people to act crazy and shun their family members. So I want to play this clip. I've got a couple of clips from the Joy Reid show, but this is just part of the show. I will get to the clip of the Yale professor, but you've got to listen to a little bit of Joyless Reid for background here. Here we go. Some people are taking the news that Donald Trump is president-elect better than others. Joy Reid is losing her marbles. Here we go.
And it was not just Gen X, because while 91% of Black women voted for Kamala Harris, 53% of white women overall voted for Trump, despite the open disrespect and demonization hurled by J.D. Vance and the Supreme Court stripping women's bodily autonomy, courtesy of Donald Trump, who closed his repulsive campaign by dropping the B word on Nancy Pelosi. The breakdown by education was stark. Harris won 57% of white women with college degrees and lost 63% of white women without them. It was also men. Trump won every age group of men, including 60% of Gen X men and 6 in 10 white men. Also Latino men, who despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in. However, we only have so much time for blame. We now need to make a plan.
So I want to play one more clip here from the show as background, and then I'm going to get to the Yale professor. But here's Joyless Reid. She's accusing Black and Latino men that voted for Donald Trump of anti-Blackness. And she accuses them of identifying with whiteness, Black and Latino men, which Biden translation, you ain't Black. If you vote for Donald Trump, you ain't Black. I mean, that's the Biden translation to Joy Reid right here.
And it's this idea of I want to be with the side that's waving the biggest flag. I want to fit in. And there is a huge element, to be honest, of anti-Blackness in a lot of this, anti-Black Americanness specifically.
What?
And Paula and I have talked about this, that there is a part of that anti-Blackness is a piece of it, even though Enrique Tarrio, who's the head of the Proud Boys, is a Black Latino, but he's down with white supremacists, down with them. And there's this idea that I'm Black, but I'm not Black. I may look Black to you. I may be Black if I'm walking through Bloomingdale's and get followed around. But in my mind, I'm identifying with whiteness because whiteness means privilege and it means not being a Black American. This has to be unpacked because this shift among Latino men is significant. And it says something about where we're going in this country, about whether we can create an appeal. There's also, the last thing I will throw in is the creation of the idea that everything that Vice President Harris was proposing is communism. That is a potent argument for a lot of Latinos.
It's a potent argument because it's true, right? She's just so racist. She accuses Black and Latino men of being anti-Black and identifying with whiteness because they voted for Donald Trump. This woman's absolute nut. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but we're going to get to the psychiatrist here. I promised you. She's saying it's totally normal if you don't want to spend your holidays or the holidays with relatives who on election day voted for somebody different than you. Right. You're prioritizing your mental health, says the psychiatrist. If you just tell them that you don't want to show up to family Thanksgiving or family Christmas, instead of admitting that you have a severe mental problem and in the fact that you are too emotional over politics, okay? I have liberal family, friends, everything, and I would not. I just am not that emotional over politics to where I can't sit down and have a meal with them. But the other side is they are emotionally unstable. And instead of the psychiatrist saying, hey, that's not normal to not want to sit down with your family and friends despite them having different politics than you, instead of her saying that, she's encouraging them to shun your family members if your family members voted differently than you. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Gap. she's black and can afford Bloomingdale's. Yeah, she made this comment like, you know, I'm black and following her around in Bloomingdale's or something like that. I don't know what she was talking about there exactly, but she was insinuating that black people can't afford Bloomingdale's. This woman is worth, I mean, let's look it up. I mean, Joy Reid is worth millions. And she is worth millions because she lies to people and she stokes fear and misinformation. So let's see, Joy Reid net worth. Let's see how much this woman is worth. Oh gosh. It's gonna make me lose my bonker. Or $4 million. Net worth is estimated to be $4 million. Yep. So she's a millionaire, folks. She's a millionaire, and she's gonna sit there and peddle misinformation and call Latino men racist, essentially. Anti-black is racist. She was calling Latino men racist for voting for Donald Trump or for believing that Kamala Harris was going to implement communist policies. I'd have to pull up the video, but I mean, there was something that she ran back when she was running alongside Joe Biden in 2020. It was a video on her social media. And it had to do with equity versus equality and how we need equity, not equality. So it was a video quite literally about like equity, not equal outcome, or equal outcomes, not equality, equal opportunity. So that is communism. She is blatantly a proponent of communism. She was back in 2020 when she ran alongside Joe Biden. She was back in 2019 when she was running in the primary against Joe Biden for the presidential nomination. So she's always been a raging communist, you know, and she says that she took down transnational criminals. I've talked with you plenty of times about that, where she didn't take down transnational criminals. Instead, she came in and she took all the credit away from the locals. So it was a multi-year transnational where they took down gangs, okay, and drug trafficking, guns, and it was all the work of the locals there in California. And then she comes in like in the last year of this multi-year investigation, and she comes in and she takes credit as the, you know, now sitting DA or state's attorney. And that, I mean, she's never been pro law and order. She's never been anti-communism. She's always been the same communist that she was back in 2019, back when she was a DA for California, where she, you know, was locking up black men for petty marijuana offenses. I mean, she's always been a raging communist and anti-American. Okay, so she would rather lock them up, the, you know, black people who had black men who had petty drug crimes like marijuana offenses. She'd rather lock those people up than the hardened criminals now, where we have illegal immigrants. They're crowding up our federal prisons. You've got them killing people like Lake and Riley. She doesn't want to do anything about those people, but back in her time as a prosecutor, she would prosecute black men for petty drug crimes, or she would go after people with truancy issues where there were black families. There was one woman, she had a truancy issue because her daughter had a health problem, and Kamala Harris cracked down on truancy and locked up parents because their kids weren't going to school because they were sick. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I do want to play a little bit from this psychiatrist who says that it's okay to shun your family members around Christmas time if those family members voted for Donald Trump. So take a listen.
Yeah, and we know that there's been a vast increase since the election, 700% increase in calls from LGBTQ youth to the Trevor Project, which offers a phone, online chat, or text to people. 700% increase in calls, texts, and chats compared to prior weeks. So people are scared, but they don't know what's going to happen to them. But I wonder if also, are people challenged with the idea of how do you interact with people who you know voted for this, right? If you are an LGBTQ person and you know someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman knowing that, this man was calling people the B word, J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of Black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talked to, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, I don't think that you should.
All right. Yeah, enough of that. That was the psychiatrist here with Joyless Reed, and she is encouraging people to shun their family members this holiday season. Incredible. There's so much misinformation out there about this election. And I'm going to unpack this on the other side. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back at the top of the hour unpacking this clip. And we've got so much more to get to, so much more. A new pick for Trump's administration. We're going to be talking about the Border Czar he picked. That's next. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to be chatting a little bit more about that psychiatrist. It's been like 7 days since Donald Trump won the election. Check in on your liberal friends, make sure they're all right. But there was a ton of misinformation spread during this election cycle, and people's minds have been warped, okay? And if they voted differently from you and your liberal family members, right, I get it. I get why you voted differently, because the Democrats and the media claimed without evidence, and they claimed it several times to a point where they were, just drilling it into these minds and brainwashing people that Donald Trump was a fascist and that he was a threat to democracy. They also peddled disinformation like, oh, this campaign or Donald Trump's administration, they're going to outlaw miscarriages, right? Which is really weird. There was a disinformation campaign to redefine miscarriages as illegal under Roe v. Wade repeal of Roe v. Wade, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It did not, that overturning did not touch on the issue of miscarriages at all. Because, let's be honest here, folks, the disinformation campaign, miscarriages and abortion, it's different. It's a different procedure. Okay. And, they wanted to redefine it, under the Roe v. Wade appeal to cover miscarriages or to go against miscarriages, or that there was a threat to, procedures to women who had miscarriages in the hospital. And then the hospitals wouldn't be able to perform those. They had to peddle that disinformation campaign because they couldn't push their gross pro-abortion agenda. They had to figure out something other than abortion. So they tried to prey on women and redefine miscarriages as illegal under the Roe v. Wade repeal, which is just ridiculous. Women are going to be if you have a miscarriage tragedy, you are going to be able to receive life-saving care, okay, and top-notch care at our hospitals, okay? Nobody is going to just not provide you care if you're having a miscarriage, okay? That's not at all what we're talking about here. It's a very different procedure. An elective abortion is a different procedure, and that's what Roe v. Wade touches on. If you're a woman and you get the bulk of your news from TikTok, from MSNBC, from Joy Reid. Of course, you are going to be misled into believing that you have less rights now that Donald Trump is president. You are going to believe that because you've been fed misinformation. And the amount of people who are on the left who are allowed to spread, this politics of fear. This isn't even politics anymore. You're just literally stoking fear into women, saying that they won't be able to have miscarriages and go to the hospital to receive care. That's ridiculous. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody is going after women who receive care for their miscarriages. We're talking about elective abortions, and they just run away with this thing, and it's really shameful. And I don't know how they're allowed to spread this misinformation, but MSNBC, they're just shameful. The TikTok influencers, just shameful. So here's the thing. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you're the type of person who's willing to disown your family and not sit down at a dinner table with them over the holidays because of the results of the election and how, your family members may have voted for Donald Trump and you didn't, if you're not willing to, sit down with them or disown them, and if you're willing to do that, chances are your family is going to be so happy that you were not sitting down with them this year. They probably didn't want to deal with you during the holidays any more than you want to deal with them. So, I'm willing to bet that it's not going to be a big loss for your family if you don't show up. So it's unfortunate for you, really. And for this psychiatrist to condone or to encourage people to shun their family members, that's psycho. I mean, that's not at all improving anybody's mental health. You're telling people to isolate themselves because they think differently than somebody else. And that is not healthy. That's why I always encourage people not to go to psychiatrists or therapists or people with degrees. Go to a pastor. Go to a Christian pastor, go to your pastor, get into a church home, and go to your pastor when you're dealing with issues, and go to the Word, right? Go to the Bible, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. Head there for help. Do not go to these crazy psychiatrists. That is just insane that she'd be out there saying, "Oh, it's great for you to shun your family." What? It's actually improves your mental health to isolate yourself from everybody because you have a different viewpoint. What? So I do want to talk about the Thomas Homan. He's the new Border Czar. He was selected by Donald Trump. I am going to be playing some highlights of his career because he's hilarious and he definitely knows how to deal with the media. Smash that like button if you're watching. I'd really appreciate it. But our bulldog at the border, yeah. He's not exactly, well, and here's what I, tell people all of the time. Let your freak flag fly, right? He might not be pretty to listen to. He might not say things that are politically correct, but, he says it doesn't take somebody with multiple degrees or somebody with all kinds of experience to know that, hey, illegal immigration, it's illegal, right? It doesn't take a genius to know that this is wrong and that we shouldn't have 20 million plus illegal immigrants in this country. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'll finish up that clip with the psychiatrist on MSNBC and Joy Reid. She says, look, folks, I have always said it. Anybody who is struggling with mental health, my advice is to not go to a psychiatrist or a therapist or people with degrees. Now, I'm not telling you. I'm just saying what I tell my personal friends and family because I care about them. I say, do not go to somebody with all kinds of degrees because you're going to get terrible advice. This psychiatrist, somebody who's supposed to be helping people through their mental health, she's out there advocating for them to isolate themselves from their families just based on on differences, on political differences. which she's encouraging you to shun your family during the holidays, and rather than getting them to admit. And here's the thing about psychiatrists: it's all about money. Right, it's all about money. They're going to keep you coming in. When they see a liberal with blue hair, they start to drool because they're like, "Oh, I'm going to come into so much cash, and I'm not going to improve this person's mental health. I'm going to keep them down, so they have to keep coming back, and they have to keep paying me." As a psychiatrist, it's all about the green. Okay, go to a Christian counselor or somebody who isn't going to charge you an arm and a leg for mental health services. Go to your pastor or open up the BIBLE, the Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth, the Bible. They will give you terrible advice, these therapists and the people with all kinds of degrees. We are going to get to Homan. He is Thomas Homan, the Border Czar that was selected by President Donald Trump. I'm very excited to talk about him because he's not one of these people with all kinds of experience. He started out as a border agent, worked his way up. He was the ICE director, former ICE director under President Donald Trump, and he is now going to be the Border Czar. And here's the thing: you don't have to have all these big words or this vast experience or all these degrees to know that, hey, illegal immigration is illegal and we're going to treat it as such. You don't need this political correctness. Now, this guy is just blunt and to the point, and I love that. And I think that we need more of that. When it comes to our mental health, this psychiatrist, if she actually cared about people, you'd be blunt. You'd say, you're emotionally unstable. If you think that you can't hang out with your friends and family just because they voted differently than you, then you are emotionally unstable and you need to work on that. But she won't do that. She's going to keep them emotionally unstable. She's going to isolate them because it's pure evil. It's pure evil because she wants to get rich. She wants to keep the blue-haired, crazy, emotionally unstable liberal. She wants to keep them coming back to her office. So take a listen.
You should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
Establish boundaries, i.e., put yourself in isolation and don't break away from this brainwashing that you've experienced. If you've gotten a bulk of your news from TikTokers, from MSNBC, you have been misled, and I feel terribly for it. I feel bad for these people because they honestly believe that they have less rights than they used to. Now that Donald Trump is going to be president again, which is just wild to me. The left and the media, I repeat myself when I say that, they are just shameful. They tried to convince people that miscarriages are under attack, or procedures that you go through, like a D&C, if you miscarry, are under attack and you can't get them anymore at a hospital just because Roe v. Wade was repealed. And that was a disinformation campaign. They honestly are convincing women that they cannot go and seek help at a hospital for procedures like a D&C if they miscarry. We're talking about a gross pro-abortion agenda. And that's why they went after the miscarriages. And that's why they're trying to redefine miscarriages as illegal under the Roe v. Wade repeal. They're trying to do this because they can't push openly or overtly their pro-abortion agenda because people don't like that. People don't like aborting children at the 9th month, so they have to lie. Unfortunate that a lot of these people have been manipulated. But here's the thing. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. If you are the type of person who's willing to disown your family and not sit down at a dinner table with somebody who has a different political viewpoint than you, chances are that you're not going to be really missed at the dinner table or at the family functions this holiday season. If you are that much of a you're that self-loathing and you're that selfish to where you can't put your political differences aside, chances are they didn't want you at the holiday dinner table either. And they're probably going to be grateful that you didn't show up from your Christmas break, and they were hoping that eventually you'd stop coming around as well. When you came home with your PowerPoint presentation that you did for college on Obamacare and how great it is, or how Donald Trump is a fascist, right? They were really hoping you weren't going to come back from Christmas break and sit down at the dinner table with them. But they do it anyway, and they can that's the difference between a Trump supporter and a Kamala Harris supporter. You can definitely, I have done it several times where I put my differences aside and I talk with, a leftist and try my best to not just scream, "What are you talking about?" But how can you not put it aside? I just don't, I don't know how they do that. All right, I do have to talk about Thomas Homan. He is the new Border Czar. I'm really excited about this because this guy, he is just a bulldog, as somebody pointed out on the text line. Homan, he's not really pretty to listen to, but he's going to be our bulldog at the border. Yeah. So he is not politically correct. And I love this about this guy, Thomas Homan. He's going to be the guy tasked with the mass deportations. So he knows how to handle the media. And here's how he handles the media: with common sense. The only way to handle the media is with common sense. You can't be politically correct. He's not someone who bends the knee to these fools, to put it mildly. He's the guy who's going to be, he's actually called for politicians to be charged who run sanctuary cities. So that's Governor J.B. Pritzker. And Governor J.B. Pritzker said, Donald Trump is not going to be carrying out deportations here in my state. Well, Thomas Homan here might put you in cuffs, JB. So you might want to tone it down there, and let him come in and do his job, which is to deport illegal immigrants. I'm really excited. I want to play this clip from 60 Minutes. This is how Thomas Homan handles the media. And I mean, he's just this is a master class. Here we go.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
We have seen one estimate.
I love it. I love it. That was one of my favorite moments. 60 Minutes. He goes, of course there is. Families can be deported together. Well, here's the thing. I know that sounds like it's crass or blunt or whatever, but common sense will tell you. I mean, if you're doing something illegal and you're bringing your children over here illegally, that's you have to be deported. You have to be denied entry if you are not using the proper channels to get into this country and to properly seek asylum. I told you how bad the Mexican election was earlier in the show. There are reasons to seek asylum. There were 231 people killed during the election cycle because of political violence. I mean, yes, seeking asylum, but you do it through the port of entry. Here's some of my favorite moments with Thomas Homan and AOC. These have been making their rounds on social media. Now, this was back in 2019. It's only fitting that we talk about it here on Conservative Cat, now that he is the Border Czar. But this was back in 2019 during a congressional hearing. He has wits, this guy. Okay, so he's got wits, and he was battling out with social media influencer. I call her a social media influencer because she really treats her congressional membership as a side hustle. She does not really care about being representative of people or this country or the Constitution. AOC is all about the clicks. Okay, so she found herself in a battle with this guy in 2019 as the ICE director. Now, remember, this was all prior to Joe Biden and the open borders, letting everybody in, right? And now without, any kind of requirements or any kind of, he's going to be unfettered. He is going to have complete control over this mass deportation stuff under the Trump administration, and he's not going to stop him. And I'm excited for that. So let's take a listen here. Here we go. This is AOC and Thomas Homan battling it out. Here we go.
In my 34 years, I've never seen such hate toward law enforcement agency in my life that you want to abolish them rather than doing your job and legislate.
Mr. Homan, your
if
time
they don't
is
like
expired.
it, legislate. You can't.
Mr. Homan, according to the rules of this committee,
of enacting laws.
Mr. Homan,
they
your
want to
time
enforce.
is expired. The chair now recognizes Ms. Hill.
She was losing her mind. She was actually losing her mind. He has zero patience for AOC's antics. He is a complete no-nonsense guy. And here's what I say. Let your freak flag fly, right? If it's common sense that illegal immigration is illegal, and he just sticks to the basics here, folks. He does not have to use big words or complicate the matter at all, like the left does a lot of the time to try to confuse you. It's illegal. Illegal immigration. It's illegal. So let's take a listen to this little battle that they have during a congressional hearing, same congressional hearing from 2019. Here
Your
we
name
go.
is on this. Is this correct?
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy.
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation was option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the Secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation of the many that you recommended family separation,
I recommend zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
I love it. I love it so much. So Donald Trump has been promising mass deportation of people living in this country illegally starting on day one. And it's got to be day one because he's only got a certain amount of time before, or a certain amount of political capital to do it. Because, it's one thing when you've got people telling pollsters, yes, I am for deporting illegal immigrants here in 2024, of course, because you're dealing with it. They're diverting all of the resources to the illegals in Chicago. People are living in tents. I was watching this video. She's living in a tent, and she used to get checks, like from the city, in this housing, government housing. But now it's all been diverted, and they're giving it all to the illegal immigrants. Okay, so it's one thing to say it now in 2024. I wonder if people will feel the same way when the media turns up the propaganda. To 700, and they're like, propaganda, 700, let's turn it up. I wonder if they're going to feel the same way in a couple of years from now. Probably not. So he's got to do it on day one while he's got the political capital to do it. And the people are feeling this way about the illegal immigration. Give it some time. Give the media some time to turn up the propaganda and get AOC out there crying at the border. Then it might be a different story. But polls are going to be conducted by the media, the same polls that, of course, showed you that Trump was going to lose the election. These polls are going to show you how voters disapprove of Trump's handling of the mass deportation. Expect that. okay, because that's the media. They're going to try to show polls that people are upset with the mass deportations. And like I said, these are the same polls conducted by the media that said that Trump was going to lose. So Trump needs somebody to handle the press. This guy, I think, can handle the press. He's very good at handling the media. And I think that he's going to do the job effectively and efficiently because he's sticking to the basics. He's sticking to common sense. Hey, we separate children from people who commit felonies all of the time. DUIs, commit crimes. If you commit crimes as a parent, we separate you from the children because you're a danger to that child. And then I have to take a break, but we're going to come back. We're going to chat more. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I've met people who have crossed the border. I've actually met illegal immigrants who have crossed the border illegally. Smash that like button if you're watching. I met this guy. He was Romanian, illegal immigrant. He came over with his wife and his baby, like small child. He came over and he was telling me about the price that he had to pay what he said was like a cartel member or a human smuggler. This was a big Mexican guy with a gun. This is what the Romanian illegal immigrant told me. Okay. And he said that he had to pay $5,000 a head. So that was $15,000 this illegal immigrant had to pay. Okay, to get into this country, to not even get into the country, to pay the human smuggler who would take him from one point in Mexico up to the border, and then they had to cross the border illegally and walk. They had to walk miles, right? When you put a child in harm's way like that, right? And I'm just going to be honest, when you put a child in harm's way, and you're willing to pay a guy with a huge gun $5,000 to traffic you over to the border, not even over the border, just close to the border to where you can hop it, and you're willing to do that and put your child in jeopardy in their lives and in the balance here, like you had no idea what that guy would do if you just looked at that guy sideways. He's got a gun, or if you didn't have enough, maybe you had $14,000 and you couldn't scrape up that extra $1,000 to pay the cartel member, the human smuggler. Who knows what would have happened to that child? You should be separated from your child if you're committing a crime, like any other crime. If you are engaging in criminal activity, you should be separated from your children because you are a danger. If you are willing to engage in illegal activity, then you are a danger to your family and to yourself. Really, you're a danger to yourself and others. How should we deem people as necessary to be locked up? Are they a danger to themselves? Are they a danger to others? And if they are a danger to themselves and others, and they've put others in harm's way, and if they've put themselves in harm's way, you should be locked up, whether that be in a mental institution or prison. Okay, and in this case, he knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't like he was mentally incapable of making this decision to traffic his entire family over the border and to get into the van of somebody who had a big gun and wanted $15,000. He did this all willingly, which proves that this person is of not sound mind, but like he's not a regular citizen. He's not a law-abiding citizen. Somebody who is law-abiding would not get themselves into that situation, two, proceed with that circumstance and be willing to put their life on the line and also other people's lives on the line. So yeah, I mean, that's it. It's very simple. If you put your children's lives in danger by committing a crime, then you should be separated from that child. Smash that like button. We're going to share this out with our friends, and I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. you. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Some housekeeping things. I will be out at Altman's Billiards and Barstools. 11 to 3. Santa Claus will be there. And I'm excited. It's on the 16th. Okay. So I'm going to be there this Saturday, starting at 11, and you can get that Christmas photo, for your Christmas card. Okay. Get the picture of the kids and send it out to the family, as a holiday gift. Okay. Give them the Christmas card with the kids around Santa Claus. You can check out, shopaltmans.com. Check out their Facebook page. Altman's Billiards and Barstools, they are Central Illinois' best choice for quality family furnishing. And it's a relaxed atmosphere there. Really cool place. We're going to give out prizes as well. We have Festival of Light passes. We have all kinds of fun gift cards that you can get this Saturday, November 16th. We're also going to be out there on the 17th. You can get your picture with Santa at the corner of Veterans and Mercer. That's Altman's Billiards and Barstools. This is the place to go if you need a pool table. I was playing some air hockey. It was an air hockey table. I was playing some air hockey with Santa last weekend. So head on out. We're gonna start the festivities there at Altman's on Saturday, the 16th at 11. Do want to talk about The View having a hissy fit over this new Border Czar. I told you I really like the Border Czar, Thomas Homan. He is the dude. He is the guy who will effectively and efficiently stop the illegal border crossings. He's also going to carry out these mass deportations. And, the family separation. He does this so brilliantly. He says, look, if dad has a kid in the car and he gets a GUI, I'm going to separate that man from his child because he's committing an illegal activity. He's committing a crime. And I've talked with people who have actually crossed the border illegally. It's really sad. It's tragic what goes on in other countries, but it's really sad and tragic what they do to get here. And the illegal activity that goes on. So they paid $15,000. It was a family of 3. It was $5,000 a head to a human smuggler. What he described as what I'm going to call a human smuggler. He didn't call him that because he doesn't know. I guess he doesn't know he's committing a crime. But that doesn't mean he's not committing a crime, folks. Okay. He's not a victim here. Just because you say, oh, I didn't know the law required me not to drink and drive, right? That ignorance of the law does not mean that you didn't commit the crime. Okay, so the law says that you cannot come to the country illegally and through an illegal port of entry, okay, where you do not go through the legal port of entry. So they paid $15,000 to a human smuggler. It was a baby. I'm talking infant, like, is probably still a bottle, right? This baby. And they paid $5,000 for this baby to be trafficked over, not even over the border. It's really sad. $15,000 to just get close to the border, and then they had to walk. They wound up buying a van from this pastor at this church, and they were Romanian. And, you're putting yourself and others in harm's way. How do we deem you a threat to society? Do you put yourself in harm's way, and do you put others in harm's way? This baby could have died. You look at the human smuggler sideways, you're dead. I mean, the immigrant told me, hey, this guy had a gun, a big gun, and he required us to pay $5,000 a head to get over to at least close the border. So they're entering this country illegally, and it's illegal for someone to do that, to enter the country illegally. Somebody should really tell the ladies on The View that. So Navarro and Sunny Hostin, okay? Anna Navarro and Sunny Hostin, they are besides themselves, and they just can't stand the fact that this guy was appointed as the Border Czar. So they are crying because the U.S. government is actually going to do their job now. Which is really exciting, and they're going to close the borders. And then just take a listen to the clip. We're going to play it. Here we go.
when he says, yes, families can be deported together.
Yeah.
What he is saying is that U.S. citizens can be deported. What he is saying is,
No.
if the
Not what
parent
he's saying.
is undocumented
Mhm.
and they have U.S. citizen children or U.S. citizen spouse, or and you don't want to separate them, then let's deport the U.S. citizens. Look, Donald Trump won the electoral vote. He won. He's going to win the House. He won the Senate. For all effects and purposes, he's got the Supreme Court. They've given him immunity. This is what the country voted for. This is, a lot of people thought that when he talked about mass deportations, he wasn't being serious. I don't know how many times he had to say it for people to realize he was being serious. Well, if you thought he wasn't being serious, the appointment of Tom Homan today as Border Czar, and he will be in charge of a mass deportation program, the largest the country has ever seen, they say. And now Stephen Miller, as Deputy Chief of Staff, should let you know that he was absolutely serious. And when you talk about mass deportations, people think, oh, it's just going to be the criminals. There's not enough criminals, aliens in the federal prison system for it to be mass deportations. What it means is grandmothers.
Oh, no.
What it means
Wrong, but we'll hit on it later.
means is brothers and aunts. What it means is abuelos y abuelas. It means dreamers. It means your family members. It means your colleagues. It means your friends. It means people who are part of the society. And look, America, those of you who voted for Trump, this is what you wanted. This is what you voted for. You screwed around and you're about to find out.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that, right? I mean, we get the government that we vote for as a country, and the majority of the country apparently voted for this. And, I think it's really loud and clear that what he said, he meant. And if you look at Homan's background, he was a contributor to Project 2025. He was a police officer, which I find really rich because he was appointed by a convicted felon. He also was a United States Border Patrol agent, a special agent with the former Immigration and Naturalization Service. So this is his thing. This is his background. But what I would like to point out is that there is no correlation between undocumented people and a rise in crime. That's statistically accurate.
No.
Immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, are less likely to commit crimes in the United States. So this notion...
Not true. Not true. Of course, they're more likely to commit crime in the United States because they're willing to commit crime to begin with by illegally entering the country. If you're willing to commit that crime, and you have to. I mean, if you're illegally in the country, you can't legally obtain employment. You resort a lot of the times to illegal forms of employment. That's just the fact. She's wrong. And our federal prisons are packed to the brim with illegal immigrants. So firstly, these people having the nerve to claim that illegal immigrants have some type of right to be here, even though as if they didn't commit a crime coming here in the first place, is just so annoying. Secondly, Trump has promised from the beginning to engage in mass deportations, and to act like this is like a brand new thing just because he appoints somebody to do it. It boggles my mind, but of course he's going to engage in the largest deportation effort. And he's not talking about grandma, okay? He's talking about illegal immigrants who walked over the border, paid thousands of dollars to human smugglers to drive them up to the border, and then they walked over the border, swam over the border. Thirdly, the new Border Czar would not have to deport so many people if it wasn't for the current Border Czar. And had she actually done her job, we wouldn't have to carry out mass deportations. These people might be a part of society now. They might serve or they might illegally be serving in some sort of form of employment. They might illegally be employed, and they might serve a purpose here in American society. But that is the fault of the current Border Czar, because she allowed these people to illegally come here and, one, drain our resources, two, take the jobs. I've walked you through these numbers. There were no new jobs. All the new jobs went to foreign-born workers, and the new jobs were also all government jobs. There were no private sector jobs, and the illegals and foreign nationals, they're the ones getting the jobs. So they're going to be crying, that the government is actually going to do their job, and the government is promising to do their job, which is to keep this country sovereign and have it remain its own country. This is a level of TDS that I have never seen before, but of course, it's the ladies on The View. Trump could literally cure cancer, and these people would have a problem with it. I'm convinced of that. So I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button and share this out with your friends. We've got so much to get to here. Do want to talk more about the Border Czar. Tell me you're naive on federal immigration laws without telling me you're naive on federal immigration laws. The ladies of The View, everybody, they are just completely oblivious to what federal immigration laws are. And they're blaming you, the voter. What did she say? You screwed around. Now you're going to find out. And they said it's chilling that this guy would be willing to deport families together. It's chilling. No, I'll tell you what's chilling. The fact that we had our current Border Czar in her job, and she didn't do her job, and she allowed the pouring of fentanyl over the border, the drug cartels to operate, and these people to hop the border illegally. I like this comment here. And they said, whoa. How can we trust his story? Like I said, I walked up to this guy. He was panhandling in Bloomington. I have no idea. He said he was a mechanic. That story really didn't check out because he did have thousands of dollars to leave Romania. Obviously, he paid a human smuggler thousands of dollars. So I don't know how. He said that he made like $300 a month as a mechanic in Romania. This was just me we have the show. I think it's archived on YouTube where he was in studio with me. I don't think that we displayed his picture or his face on the video because we wanted to keep him, safe, because he knows that he's here illegally, right? They know that they're here illegally. That's why he didn't want to show his face on the camera. Very nice man. I think that he was a sweet guy. He had a baby. He had his wife. That doesn't mean there's very kind people who commit crimes all of the time, or ignorant people who don't understand the law and commit crimes because they don't understand the law. But ignorance does not protect you from prosecution or charges or being deported if you are breaking the law. Okay. Ignorance of the law does not mean, you didn't break the law, right? You did it, right? Just because I might not know that, for example, jaywalking is a crime, but, a cop comes up, writes me a ticket. I can't claim ignorance. I didn't know what the speed limit was here, officer. I didn't know the sign, or I didn't see the sign. That doesn't mean I didn't break the law, right? I was still speeding in an area. It's my fault that I didn't know the law. And these people know the law. That's the problem. As I told you, this Romanian immigrant that I spoke to on the radio, he told us his story. He told us about the, few $1,000s. I think it was either 3 or 5. Now it's somewhere between $9,000, $15,000 he paid for this human smuggler to get him and his child and his wife over close to the border, which is just so sickening, these human smugglers, that they would con you really out of your cash, because it's like, wow, you didn't even get them to America for that money, for that big chunk of change, but you got them close enough to where they could walk over the border and walk miles into America. So, these people are clearly, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that he was a mechanic and that he made a few $100s. He came here looking for economic prosperity. Turns out he's on the street corner begging for money because, he can't get a job here in this country because he's illegally here. And he's out there, loitering, soliciting people for money, which is all illegal activity. So to say that the likelihood that these illegal immigrants do not commit crimes once they're here illegally is just ridiculous, because you have to commit more crime as an illegal immigrant, because you can't legally obtain employment. There's a lot of things you can't do in this country if you've entered illegally. Those are the laws. If you don't like it, as what did Thomas say? Thomas Homan, he said to AOC, he goes, if you don't like the law, legislate a new one. Legislate new law, right? So when we come back, we're going to be chatting a little bit more about the Border Czar. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, Mattel. We could get to that. Yeah, I think I can get to that right now. Mattel, they apologized after advertising a porn website on these Wicked dolls. So I don't know if you've seen Wicked. It's like a spin-off of Wizard of the Oz or whatever. And they had to issue an apology because they put a pornographic website on the doll. So we'll get to that. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. The show is archived, folks. I believe it's archived on YouTube if you guys want to find it. And on Rumble, you can always subscribe to the channel. It's Conservative Cat Show. Just type it in your search bar and subscribe. Yes, I did speak with an illegal immigrant. He was Romanian. He said that he was a mechanic, made $300 a month, and he came here looking for economic prosperity. Little did he know when he got here, there was no economic prosperity for him because he's an illegal immigrant, and you can't even really get a job as an illegal immigrant legally. You can't get a job illegally. Maybe you'd be able to find one. So he was panhandling, right? And he was asking people for money, and he found out that a lot of people didn't have a whole lot of money to give, where they have these little plastic. He goes, plastic. He goes, a lot of people have plastic. And I go, yeah, it's credit cards. Americans here are racking up credit card debt because of how bad the country is right now when it comes to inflation and the cost of living, and our salaries are not meeting up with that cost of living. Under the Biden administration, there is no economic prosperity here in America. You were duped. You were sold a bill of goods, and it turns out America's not what you thought it was. So he spent thousands of dollars and provided it to a human smuggler who drove him close to the border, not even over the border, which I think is really sad. You spend all this money, his life savings, really. I mean, it was his life savings and his savings close to $15,000. I think it was 9,000, maybe it was 15,000, but it depends on what human smuggler you get. Their fees kind of vary. But yeah, he spent thousands of dollars to leave and to get close to the border, and then he managed to get over the border, was in Bloomington, panhandling. Okay, so it happens in your communities, and it's a big problem. So there is going to be mass deportation going on under this new Border Czar, and I'm very excited about that. Now, I do want to get to this story. Mattel, they had to apologize after advertising a porn website on the Wicked dolls. Yes, so Wicked, it's like a musical, I guess. It's kind of based off of The Wizard of Oz. One might assume that if a large corporation is going to put a website on a doll, that they would have somebody double checking, right? This is a children's toy. Now, I know plenty of liberals, they probably bought these things as adults because liberals never grow up. But you would think somebody in quality control would be, making sure it's the correct website. But for some reason, Mattel blew it big time, and they accidentally printed a porn website on the Wicked dolls. So at the bottom of the box here of the Wicked dolls, it says www.wicked.com. Do not look that up. So according to BBC, the toy manufacturer Mattel has said it deeply regrets the misprint on packaging for the dolls, inspired by the new Wicked movie, which listed the address for an adult website. I love how they say adult website. It's a pornographic website, okay? So in their statement, they said, "We're so sorry about the web address. It was an address for an adult website. It's a web address for pornography." How does such a mistake happen? This is a huge mistake. you would think that the companies selling products for children would at least double check to make sure that the website is appropriate. And to be honest with you, this is just incompetence, like Kamala Harris level incompetence. So the company recently released the singing dolls ahead of the long-awaited film starring Ariana Grande. And the fans, they started posting their images on social media with the packaging, and they said, hey, this website goes to a pornographic site instead of the movie's web address. So I think it's supposed to be www.wickedmovie.com, but they didn't put the movie in there, and they just did www.wicked.com. So in a statement, Mattel apologized for the unfortunate error. They called it an unfortunate error. And they advised parents that the misprint website is not appropriate for children. Well, I'd say so. It's a pornographic website. So this is a pretty bad mistake. I don't know where the quality control staff was, but they should be fired. It doesn't sound like anybody's going to be held accountable. We don't fire anybody anymore, I guess, but somebody needs to be held accountable for this deeply regrettable mistake, this unfortunate error. Right now, you provided pornography to children. Somebody needs to be held accountable. This would be a lot easier for me to forgive, but this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Actually, there was a Paw Patrol like sweet treats that came out. Little, I think, is the name of the company that put out these sweet treats, and there was like this giant supermarket, according to RIN. They are withdrawing their Paw Patrol mini biscottis, so it's like a sweet treat, and their Paw Patrol yummy bakes from their shelves following customer complaints. Reports by The Sun revealed the questionable URL, which leads customers to a pornographic website. So this has happened before with these manufacturers, these children manufacturers. I don't like it. I think once is way too many times. Being that this happened to a different manufacturer, Mattel should have had a quality control staff, double checking these things. And I don't know. Let's just hope that they learn from this and we don't see further websites on these products, these inappropriate websites on products like this. What an unfortunate error, or an adult website. I hate the politically correct nonsense about this too. It's like, let's call it what it is. You provided pornography to children, and you screwed up big. All right, I'll be right back. It's Concerned Big Cat. Mattel. Oh. Yeah. David was there. David Pablomanshine was there with this Romanian immigrant. Okay, and I'm not saying that he wasn't a great guy. Bible on his dashboard and minivan that he was given to Arkansas. But here's the thing. I mean, he committed a crime, and that's what I'm saying is, these mass deportations. Actually, I think it's the best thing for the children if you deport these people. And it's tragic that he would be deported, but he's probably going to have a much better life, not in the United States, because he's currently sitting on street corners. And I don't know where he is now, but he was sitting on street corners asking people for money, with a small baby in his hands and with an umbrella in the hot sun. I hope he's doing well. But here's the thing, you put yourself in harm's way and you put others in harm's way. You put your family in harm's way. And I understand these countries, as I told you, in Mexico, the Mexico president, Claudia Sheinbaum, she's a far leftist. She's a nut. I think that she's the cartel's pick. I have a hunch that she's the cartel's pick. She wouldn't even declare or officially announce Trump as the president. She just won the bloodiest election in Mexican history. And I mean, you had 231 people die during a political cycle. From political violence. It was a report that was out. 749 people were harmed or victim of political violence. And then you had 231 people die, killings from political violence during this Mexican election cycle. That doesn't happen in the United States. As much as we're divided on an issue, as much as we, shout from our platforms or from our news platforms like MSNBC, nobody's out there in MAGA hats, as we saw with Jussie Smollett. That was just fictitious and wrong. People are not out in MAGA hats trying to hurt people. People are largely, the pro-Palestinian folks, I don't know, they're definitely going after and targeting people politically on campuses, which is really sad. And they're funded by big money groups. So, it does happen here in the United States, political violence, but not to that extreme. I don't think that we had 231 people die during this election cycle, because of political violence. So, yes, these people are fleeing very, very tragic situations. He told me that he was a mechanic looking for economic prosperity. He was only making $300 a month. Could you imagine? And here in the United States, you can make a ton of money, right? Triple that here in a month in the United States. But here's the thing. There is a legal port of entry, and the best way to get into this country is obviously illegally. Maybe we need to button that up a little bit, but there's a legal port of entry where you can seek asylum from those countries. And here's the thing. Definitionally, by definition, that Romanian immigrant, he was not seeking asylum because he could have sought asylum in Mexico, but he went to Spain, then he went to Mexico. You don't get to cherry pick what country you seek asylum in. If you're fleeing a situation in Romania, as soon as you get into Spain, you seek asylum there. There's a definition where you can't just go country to country to country or pick the country you want to seek asylum in. Woohoo! Hey, November 16th, I'm going to be out at Altman's Billiards and Barstools. It's Central Illinois' best choice for quality family furnishing. They have really cool furniture there. They've even got hot tubs there. So head on out this Saturday from 11 to 3. See Santa Claus and me, Conservative Cat. I'll be there. Check out shopaltmans.com. We're also going to have prizes, and you can get a picture, obviously, with Santa of the kids and send it out in time for your holiday Christmas card. I do want to wrap up the show. People are saying, seek asylum, or these are asylum seekers. I want to be very clear. Asylum seeker, there is a specific definition. You cannot hop country to country to country and then seek asylum in America. So you can't go from Romania to Spain to Mexico and then to America and seek asylum in America. It's the first country you get to, then you have to seek asylum there. You have a lot of people in these countries, and it's unfortunate. I told you earlier in the show, Mexico, they had the bloodiest election, 231 killings. People died from political violence in that country. You had 749 of them injured or falling victim to political violence, whether that be intimidation or threatening behavior. You had dozens of political candidates that were threatened, and then you had many of them dropping out of the races, fearing for their lives. So there are countries where, and that doesn't happen here in America, okay? And there are countries where you have to flee. You have to flee and you have to try to seek asylum. I'm not saying that. There is a legal port of entry. There is a legal way of seeking asylum, and you don't get to come from country to country to country and then land your way here in America and then pay a human smuggler to smuggle you across the border, for thousands of dollars and to walk over the border illegally. You can't do that. Okay. And these people know that that's a crime, but they do it anyway because they think that their situation is much worse in their country than it probably is. But the unfortunate thing is that there is a way to do it. There is a legal way to do it. And if you do it the legal way, you're not going to be panhandling on the streets of the United States. or struggling to get by here in the United States as an illegal immigrant. You'll be a legal immigrant. You'll be a United States citizen. You can gain citizenship or a visa, a work visa, or something like that. A green card. I mean, there's all kinds of things. A DACA is still a thing. The Dreamers, right? Which I think it's so funny. DACA, it's like childhood action, deferred childhood action. They're not children in that program. The average age of a DACA recipient or somebody who's here as a dreamer, the average age of a dreamer is like 30-year-old men, which I'm just like, wait a second. I thought this was supposed to be like college-age kids or kids seeking a better education, and they're here. As a dreamer, right? As somebody dreaming for the American dream. That's what it was named, after. But these aren't even young people. They're just military-aged fighting men who are here on DACA. So, yeah, I'm excited for the Border Czar. I think that he's going to do a great job handling the negative press. And I think that he's going to carry out these mass deportations and probably put politicians like Governor J.B. Pritzker in cuffs if he aids and abets illegal immigration via the sanctuary cities or sanctuary states. So I'm really excited for that. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you. We'll talk again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m.